What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. We are back with another Sunday live stream. Hopefully, you guys had a good night last night. I know I did watching that UFC fight. I'm sure a lot of you guys have a lot of thoughts on that, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about start and sit. Basically, give you guys some injury news, let you guys know what's happening around the league, give you my thoughts on these like highly debated players because these are the ones that are probably going to account for most of the questions. So I'll try and answer these just right from the get-go so you guys can see that. So let's start right at the top with the injury news. Randall Cobb is out. Do not play him this week. He's not playing. He's dealing with that hamstring injury. And if you own Randall Cobb, you might want to be prepared to be without him next week as well because they have a bye in week 7. So therefore, they could just take it easy with him. He also plays next Monday night. So therefore, you're going to be left with a decision. So Randall Cobb not playing. Get him out of lineups. The aftermath of this is Marquise Valdez-Scantling, MSV or whatever everybody's calling him. MVS, that's what everybody's calling him. But he becomes like a wide receiver 4 for me. And the thing is, if Geronimo Allison is out as well, which it seems like Geronimo Allison is going to be out, we're going to get to him in a second. But there's a whole lot of injury things here. It's going to be like developing as we're talking about this today. So we'll touch on all this stuff. But Randall Cobb is absolutely out. The next player who is out is Giovanni Bernard. He's another player that you should plan to be without for a few weeks. They're saying it is 2 to 4 weeks where Giovanni Bernard is not going to practice. Not going to practice, not going to play. So get him out of fantasy lineups. Joe Mixon is back. They have cleared him from his knee injury. They're saying he's ready for a full workload. They are at home this week against a shorthanded Dolphins defense. So I would think that Joe Mixon is going to be fine to put into lineups. Next one, Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette, I think we've all kind of known this was coming after he missed 2 weeks with his first hamstring injury. He comes back, and then he hurts it again. I would imagine that he's shut down for quite a long time. And in fact, one of the beat reporters was suggesting that they could see him sitting out until their bye week, which could put him out. I want to say it was like 4 weeks that they might hold him out just to be careful with him if their record is solid. Their defense should be able to carry them through. TJ Yeldon is absolutely getting the start here. They're playing against Kansas City. I've heard some things about the weather in that game, though I haven't heard too much, like in terms of like it seems like it's rainy. It's not very windy. The rain is supposed to die down as the game goes on. So we'll pay attention to all that stuff. But as of right now, Leonard Fournette's not playing. TJ Yeldon is the starter. Get him into fantasy lineups. Marvin Jones is the next one on the list. So the Lions apparently have a history of doing this. There was a doctor that tweeted it out saying that the Lions have listed someone on the injury report late in the week, which they did with Marvin Jones. They said he had an ankle injury, and then only to play them the very next day or two, and then play a full complement of snaps. They did this with Marvin Jones apparently back in week 2 or week 3, and then they did it with Golden Tate. So they're saying it's an ongoing thing with this Detroit Lions team. So I would assume that Marvin Jones is okay. He comes with a little bit more risk than you'd want to admit, but at the same time, he should be safe to play. Next up, we have Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams, he's been dealing with a calf injury. He's been missing some practice. He returned to a limited practice on Friday, I want to say it was. So they're saying he's going to play, that he should be good to go unless there's something that happens in pregame warmups. They don't expect that to change it, but he is expected to play. So keep him in fantasy lineups just to understand that he's going to match up with Darius Slay. And the Lions have talked about, we want to take away a team's number one option, and that's their goal on defense. So we obviously know that's Devontae Adams. So I would expect a little less production from him today. I have him as more like a wide receiver 2 than the wide receiver 1 that he typically is. Geronimo Allison, his teammate, that's a big one, right? Because he was diagnosed with a concussion last week, but he also popped up on the injury report with a hamstring injury, which is leading to all other sorts of questions. So if you see a hamstring, it's usually bad news for a player. So Geronimo Allison, I do not think he plays in this game. So this is where Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going to come into the lineup. And we don't know how they're going to work this, right? Because Randall Cobb's out. If Allison's out, then Valdez-Scantling is the one who was playing in the slot for Randall Cobb last week. Now it's like they need a perimeter wide receiver. Do they move Valdez-Scantling out to the perimeter and play Ty Montgomery out of the slot? There's so many questions that arise from this that we don't have the actual answer, but that's why I say Valdez-Scantling is wide receiver 4, and I think you could plug him into lineups, is someone who should give you at least a floor. He's clearly the one running behind the starters. He's the number 1 backup option. You have Equinemius St. Brown, you have Jamon Moore. These guys have played well behind Scantling. So me personally, I think Scaling's a wide receiver 4. I think Ty Montgomery becomes like a guy that you could put in your lineups in PPR leagues. I think he's a flex play, and he's someone that really could surprise. So if you're playing DFS, I think Ty Montgomery is someone that I might toss in a turn-up lineup or two. Going down to Kiki QT, he's someone that was on the injury report, and it's worrisome because a lot of people spent a lot of money on him on the waiver wire this week, and now not to have him in this matchup against the Cowboys, which was a fantastic matchup. I mean, the thing is like there was so much going for him in this game. The fact that Lamar Miller's dinged up, the fact that Will Fuller didn't seem like he was going to play, with the pressure that Dallas is going to bring, get the ball out of his hands. But QT is apparently highly questionable. They're not playing until tonight, and that's a real big problem for a lot of people with QT. So I would exercise on the cautious side with him. I would rather play someone else because it's not as if he was a sure thing anyways. Will Fuller is another one. They don't know if he is going to play. They're saying that they believe he's going to, but they want to work him out pregame. This is worrisome for me. QT is under the same thing. Like they want to work these guys out, but Fuller, I don't understand it. We've heard things about with him with a hamstring in the past. And Bill O'Brien, the way he's worked it, he literally just doesn't play him. Like there was one week I remember where it's like everybody was waiting to see if he was active, and he was, and Will Fuller didn't get on the field for a single snap. So it may have been more of like an emergency thing, because what Bill O'Brien said last week when Fuller suffered that injury, he pulled him out of the game. He said it was not precautionary. He said that after having the conversation with him at halftime, he said that he basically could not run every route that they needed him to run. So they pulled him out of the game. That's a problem. I don't know what 1 week turns around. Like, I don't know if 1 week turnaround is good for a hamstring. I don't think it is. So Will Fuller, I have him down in like the wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 range, and not someone you particularly have to use. I mean, he just comes with some additional risk. Going down to Sammy Watkins. Sammy is someone that I did not think was going to play this week. I'm just going to be honest about it. The Chiefs pulled the plug on him very, very early in that night game they had. So it made me believe that it was just like, okay, I mean, that game was competitive throughout. If they needed Sammy Watkins and he's not coming back, I mean, I don't want to really trust him at that point, right? So it was just like hearing that he's probably going to play. I don't know, man. You don't play Sammy Watkins this week. Like seriously, if it's me, I have him in dynasty leagues. I am not playing Sammy Watkins this week because even if he is out there at, we'll say 75%, I don't even know if Sammy Watkins would be a recommended start if he was 100% against this Jaguars defense. So it could be a decoy thing where it's just they're trying to get him on the field, but I don't play Sammy Watkins. That's where I'm at with him. All right, guys. I also do want to remind you guys that we have this NFL game day. So basically, you guys watch Red Zone. I know I watch Red Zone on one of my TVs in the basement, where it's just like you have that on because you don't want to have to continually look at the screens and figure out who's in the red zone. We actually do this for you guys, for your fantasy players, like on a live feed. So instead of watching, the trackers that they have through the hosting sites, you could actually go to fantasypros.com/game day. And what it does is we actually have a system where it imports your fantasy players from your team, and it gives you a feed based on your fantasy players only, which is awesome. Make sure you guys check that out. Our devs have done a phenomenal job on that. All right, but going down to Devontae Parker, he's the next one on my list. Devontae Parker, I mean, I don't know how to feel about him right now. Like he looked okay when he returned, and then he missed another week with a quad injury. I don't know if he's falling out of favor. I mean, I can't blame the coaching staff if they're like, you can't stay healthy. We're gonna game plan without you. That's like a concern for him. They do think he's going to play, but I don't think he's a fantasy option this week. He's someone that if he's on your waiver wire, I absolutely add him, because if he gets healthy, if he is healthy, he sees targets in this offense, guys. And that's the thing, is they're missing that alpha receiver. Kenny Stills isn't it. So add Devontae Parker if he's available on your waiver wire. Dalvin Cook is the next name. I really hope that Dalvin Cook doesn't play this week for everyone's sake, because like I don't think you should play him regardless. So they're going to Philadelphia. Philadelphia last year allowed just 12 points per game at home. It was 12.4 points per game. That's just ridiculous. They've been a much better defense at home this year as well. They have not allowed a running back more than 36 yards this year. There's so many reasons that you didn't want to play Dalvin Cook, and this hamstring injury is just another one. So for me, Dalvin Cook, no thank you. No, just stay away. Marquise Goodwin. And by the way, I do want to mention that it does not mean that that doesn't mean you play Latavius Murray. Don't do that. He's not a good play either. Marquise Goodwin, he is someone that they were saying that he was questionable all week. I expect him to play. I don't expect him to be very good. I don't like CJ Beathard with Marquise Goodwin. I don't think it's a very good combination. Goodwin, where he lines up in the formation, he's going to see a lot of Patrick Peterson. It's just not great for him. So I am not playing Marquise Goodwin. I would prefer to see him absolutely healthy, and I'd also prefer to see him like some chemistry with CJ Beathard because I just haven't seen it quite yet. So I am avoiding Marquise Goodwin, even though it seems like he's probably going to play. All right, guys. So we are doing a jersey giveaway. There's a few of them, and I want to make sure. So we're going to put the link in the chat to let you guys know what the link is. But we're doing a few giveaways. We're giving away a Michael Thomas jersey right now, which is freaking awesome. All you do is you go to fantasypros.com/jersey slash not slash like a little dash giveaway. I hate that little dash in there, but that's where you do. The link is right there on the screen. If you guys go there, it literally takes 2 minutes to get entered to win that jersey, and it's absolutely free. Like legitimately, you do not have to pay any money, nothing to get entered in that. And I mean, how often do you have like a 1 in 1,000 or 2,000 chance to win a Michael Thomas signed jersey? We do these jersey giveaways all the time. We're doing one right now, so make sure. I love that jersey. It looks awesome. So check that out, guys. We are going to start with the Q&A here. So basically the way it works, guys, I want you to understand that I just literally stop the chat in one point because people have told me, they're like, how do you get a question? How do you read a question? Because they're all coming in. The way I do that is literally I just stop the chat and I grab a few questions from each spot, and then I scroll down, I grab a few more. So there's always going to be questions, and it's not in any particular order. I'm not skipping over you intentionally or anything like that. And sometimes the chat just scrolls down and I can't stop it. I'm not going to start the chat with a boxer's briefs question. But let's start with Brian's question. Calvin Ridley or Robert Woods in full PPR? Yeah, I mean, Robert Woods is really tough to sit, but at the same time, it's like you look at the games and which one do you want to play? I feel like the Rams, they can do whatever they want to Seattle, but they're going into Seattle on the road playing there. And it's always a tough place to play. I think they play it safe here, and I think they run the ball a little bit more. And like, honestly, if you have a chance to play a player in that Pittsburgh and Atlanta game, I'm playing them. Calvin Ridley's going to match up with Joe Hayden quite a bit of the time, and Joe Hayden is still a pretty decent NFL cornerback. He's not a shutdown guy anymore. They do play a lot of zone as well. So I mean, if they shift that zone towards Julio, Ridley will continue to do damage. So I'd probably play Ridley there. It's close though. I could appreciate the question. Carlos Hyde or Derrick Henry? I have this exact question in one of my leagues, and I know it's just one of my leagues because I only have Derrick Henry in one. I've talked about this where Derrick Henry was someone that I was unwilling to draft, but I mean, he fell to like the 7th round in my home league. So I took him, and I've been putting him on my bench quite a bit. But this week, I am actually playing him over Carlos Hyde. I think Derrick Henry scores at least 1 touchdown this game against Buffalo. And if he doesn't, like seriously, he's pretty much droppable because it's just terrible. But their offensive line is now intact. If you guys didn't know, they were missing both offensive tackles for a time there. And now they have them both healthy. Jack Conklin came back last week. So everybody's healthy. He's had a brutal, tough start to the schedule. Like, hold on a second. I'm going to give you guys like the start to Derrick Henry's schedule. He played against Miami. Okay, that game was really weird. That game, they had multiple rain delays and like they were out for hours. There was no halftime. It was just weird. Then he played against Houston. Houston doesn't allow anything. At Jacksonville, we know doesn't allow anything. And then he played against Philadelphia last week. I mean, these were all tough matchups. Buffalo has allowed 23 running back touchdowns in their last 12 games. It's a great matchup. I mean, him or Deion Lewis is going to do some work, but I think this is like a get-right game for the Titans run game. And I think they need to go to it. Derrick Henry should be a good play. I'm starting him over Carlos Hyde myself. Baldwin, Cooper, or Collins in standard for the last flex spot? I would go with Collins. So, I mean, the guaranteed touches are always great. So Cleveland has actually started to struggle. And I think it all stems from trading away defensive tackle that they really probably should have kept to the Patriots this offseason. But they have really struggled against the run. I mean, their secondary is getting better. Like they're still a very young defense, but Alex Collins, they reportedly held him out of practice on Thursday because they wanted him getting ready for a big workload going into Cleveland. I do think that he's a great play. I have him as a top 15 running back this week. So I'm going to go with him. Baldwin and Cooper are fine, like tournament plays in DFS, but this week, I mean, they're both in wide receiver 3 territory where they're no sure thing. Aaron Jones or Matt Breida, full PPR. I also have Galladay as a third option. Any opinion since he might not get to me? Well, Aiden, I am getting to you. But me personally, I'd go with Matt Breida in a full PPR. He's at least going to catch passes from CJ Beathard. We've seen that. He's a check down machine. Matt Breida played 38 of 60 snaps last week. And while we were worried about his knee injury and what that would mean, that was the most snaps he's played all year. Alfred Morris only played 14 snaps. They're saying it was due to some injury, but we've seen his snaps declining every single week. So Matt Breida is probably the play. Aaron Jones comes with a ton of upside, like a ton. However, don't sit here and think that Aaron Jones is a sure thing. Like, he might get 6 carries. Like that's a realistic possibility in this game, because Jamal Williams is still back there. He's still a better pass blocker. So Aaron Jones, I like him, but I'm also a little bit more hesitant. He's like an upside RB3, whereas Matt Breida is like a low end RB2. Let's see. Full point PPR, one spot for either Fuller, Cooper, or Corey Davis. In your situation, I would play Amari Cooper. So as I mentioned with Will Fuller, I'm not a big fan of playing him this week. The Dallas defense has actually done a really good job of keeping receivers in front of them. And, that's how they've kind of game planned. They said, don't get beat deep. We don't want you guys getting beat deep. So they're keeping the play in front of them. They're not falling for a double move. They're just staying back. And it's allowing some catches underneath, but we know that's not what Will Fuller does really well. I do think DeAndre Hopkins is going to have a big week, but I don't like Fuller very much. Corey Davis is going to be matched up with Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White is a fantastic cornerback. I'm not going to sit here and say that Corey Davis can't do anything against him, because Corey Davis is a phenomenal talent himself. I've said it over and over again, but he reminds me of Brandon Marshall. Before he came into the NFL, I said this kid could be Brandon Marshall 2.0, and he's looking more and more like that. He's just a monster after the catch, really strong hands, a solid route runner too. So I like him, but the matchup is worrisome. Buffalo, I don't know if Jordan Poyer, like Micah Hyde, I don't know who's playing for them. Like, I haven't seen we should be getting updates really soon on these injuries, but me personally, I'd go with Amari Cooper. So many people out there are going to tell you, don't play Amari Cooper this week. Casey Hayward shut him down. Casey Hayward did this. Guys, I'm going to rattle off some numbers here. So Tyreek Hill, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns against them. You go down, Zay Jones had 63 yards. Robert Woods, 10 catches for 104 yards, 2 touchdowns. Brandon Cooks, 7 catches, 90 yards. Pierre Garçon last week, 4 catches for 52 yards. George Kittle, 6 catches for 125 yards and a touchdown. Why am I rattling these numbers off to you? Well, that's what the Chargers have allowed to pass catchers this season, right? The reason why those stats are useless is because this Chargers defense is not the same defense that they were last year. This defense last year allowed the fewest points per game in the NFL. Yes, go back and look at it. They allowed fewer points than Jacksonville last year. This defense was different. Joey Bosa was a difference maker. They get Corey Legit back this week. I don't know if he's going to play a full complement of snaps, but this defense is not the same defense. Every single Chargers game has gone. They have scored. There's been at least 51 points scored in every game. So it's like, why are we running from Amari Cooper? Because Casey Hayward, is he a good corner? Yeah. But is he like legit a guy is he Darrelle Revis? No, he's not. So I think Amari Cooper is fine. He needs to get targets. Like, that's something we cannot control, but I think Amari Cooper can win the matchup. So that's where I'm going. Roethlisberger or Cousins? Roethlisberger. I legitimately, there's not a quarterback I would rather play than Ben Roethlisberger this week. Sure, there's contrarian things you could do in DFS, but I think pure, who do I think scores the most points is Ben Roethlisberger. The run game has been struggling a little bit. Atlanta's secondary is brutal. They're missing one of their top pass rushers this week. I mean, it's just so bad in Atlanta. They have nothing. There's literally nothing. And they're going to be forced to try and go point for point with the Steelers in Pittsburgh, where we know they score points. Ben has been struggling on the deep ball, but against Atlanta, you can kind of choose and pick your battles and where do you want to attack? So I do like Ben an awful lot. Cousins should have to throw a lot again because they don't have a run game. I don't think Dalvin Cook plays, but their offensive line against that Philly defense, Derek Barnett is announced as out. That does help, but at the same time, I'm going Roethlisberger, and it's not all that close. Big Ben or Dalton? Again, Roethlisberger. If you guys ask me a Roethlisberger question, I'm going to say Roethlisberger. You could say Aaron Rodgers. You could say Drew Brees. Doesn't matter. It's Roethlisberger. Keelan Cole or Quincy Enunwa? I would play Keelan Cole. Quincy Enunwa is not a great play this week. So Chris Harris Jr., best slot cornerback in the game. That's who he's going to be matched up with. This is a week where you're going to need to see Sam Darnold find some other options because it's just not a matchup you want to target. Like, he's legitimately is the best slot corner in the game. And then Keelan Cole, There's some concerns about weather in that game, but he does have the best matchup. And that's the thing, is some people are saying D.D. Westbrook's the player that you want to play from Jacksonville. I'm not with that take. I think Kendall Fuller is their best cornerback, and he's the one who covers the slot in 3 wide. So he's going to be matched up with D.D. Westbrook. Then you have Orlando Scandrick, who was not very good with Dallas. He played the slot for them, and Kansas City kicked him out wide. He's actually played really well. It's quite odd. Like, playing the slot is a totally different position than playing on the perimeter. So he's excelled in that spot. Like, he looked really good against Cortland Sutton last week. He had a few matchups with Demaryius Thomas. Like, he's looked pretty solid. So I actually think Keelan Cole avoids his coverage most of the time. He's on the other side of the field. So I actually think Keelan Cole could have a game if the weather permits. But I would play Keelan Cole. Can you talk about Devontae Freeman? Yeah, I mean, I'm a little concerned about them. I mean, as a run game as a whole, I don't know what the timeshare is going to be. I had Tevin Coleman like one spot higher in my rankings than Freeman, just because I wondered whether or not he would play a full complement of snaps. I don't know if they're going to ease him back into action, but I do want you to know this. Devontae Freeman's usually better at home. He's a guy that plays better on turf, because he's like he stays low to the ground, very low center of gravity. He makes cuts, and the thing is, that's tough to do on grass, and like stick your foot on the ground and just cut upfield like he does in the dome. The Pittsburgh run defense has been really good. John Bostic has been a great addition for them. I mean, looking over it, they haven't allowed a team over 78 rushing yards each of the last 3 weeks. They played Kareem Hunt. They played Alex Collins. So, I mean, even going back to week 1, Carlos Hyde had 62 yards on 22 carries. So I'm not a huge guy. I'm not a huge Freeman guy this week. I'm not playing him any DFS lineups or anything like that. I feel like he's someone that was always involved in more of a timeshare than people thought coming into the year. Because if you look at last year, after week 5, it was like a 55-45 timeshare. So it is going to be a timeshare. I do consider him he's going to be like someone that you want to play most weeks. And I don't think this one's a bad week. I have him as like a low end RB2, high end RB3, but I think there's some additional risk there. Let's see. Martavis Bryant or Kiki QT. I mean, I would prefer to wait on QT if I could. But you would need to have a backup option. So that's the thing, is you would need to have a backup option. And so if you can grab Cole Beasley, and if you don't have a bench spot, I think you have to play Martavis, because it seems like QT is probably not going to play. I'm not positive on that though. I don't know much about it. Again, that's a night game. We don't know much right now. So if you have bench space, you could probably pick up someone like Cole Beasley, but just understand that there's some risk there. Latavius Murray or Duke Johnson? Duke Johnson. So there's reasons for me to believe that Duke Johnson could be a good play this week. So Duke Johnson has been completely underused. I think they've known that. They've said that they wanted to get him more involved. Some people are talking about Nick Chubb and how, Nick Chubb's now getting more work. No, he's not. Nick Chubb played 3 snaps last week. 3 snaps. And I know he had 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's fine, guys. That was a very one-off performance. It's not going to happen again. Just don't forget about that. He played 3 snaps. That's all that matters. He is more like a threat to Carlos Hyde than he is to Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson's the pass catcher on that team, and I love that Baker Mayfield passed to him. He saw a season-high 6 targets last week. He caught 4 of them for 40 yards, I believe. All of those were season highs. That's a good thing. That means Baker is willing to check down to Duke Johnson. That means they had him on the field and the packages to use him. And knowing that Baltimore has some legit, they have 3 top tier cornerbacks. That matchup is brutal for the pass catchers outside of David Njoku, who could be good against Tony Jefferson. But I think Duke Johnson is I think I'd consider him an RB3 in PPR formats this week. I'm liking him more and more the more I think about this matchup. Half PPR, Mixon or Ingram. That's really tough. I'd probably go Mixon, just because Ingram, I don't know if there's any backlash from this whole suspension. Sean Payton and Mark Ingram, they have a weird relationship, and I don't know how that stands right now. I still have Ingram as a low-end RB1, but I would play Mixon. So Miami, Cameron Wake's not playing this game. We don't know if Rashad Jones, their stud safety, is playing this game. It is at home, and I just think the Bengals want to walk away with a win. And knowing that Giovanni Bernard is out, knowing that Mark Walton is not ready for a big role, I think Joe Mixon's going to touch the ball 15-plus times. And we can't say the same about Ingram. Ingram has a better offense for sure. I think Ingram might come with more upside, actually. But I would play Mixon this week. Mahomes or Cousins? I would play Kirk Cousins. I mentioned on the podcast this week that So Patrick Mahomes, a lot of people love Mahomes, and that's fine. Like, I mean, I like Mahomes too. Like, I'm going to play him most weeks. But the thing is like this matchup against Jacksonville is brutal. And the reason I say that is because going over their last 20 games, Jacksonville has allowed just 2 quarterbacks to score more than 18 fantasy points. All right. No quarterback has scored more than 22, like zero. No quarterback has scored more than 22 fantasy points in their last 20 games. Last week, the number 22 or 22 fantasy points would have been the QB 13, which would have been outside QB1 territory. It's basically just saying that if Patrick Mahomes finishes even as a low end QB1 this week, he's like accomplishing something that nobody has in a long time against them. Jacksonville's really good. Again, the conditions are going to be a little bit they're not going to be as great for this game. I just feel like this is going to be a lower scoring game than people think. So I'm going to go Cousins, and not to say that I love Cousins at Philly, because Philly, again, at home, they've been a really different team. But it's just like when you throw the ball 50 times to Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen and Kyle Rudolph against that defense, that secondary, I don't see how you don't get points. Like if he was going to be limited to like 25, 30 attempts, yeah, I could see that for sure, because he's going to be under tremendous pressure. But they have no run game right now. Their offensive line cannot run block. He's going to have to throw, and that's why you see Kirk Cousins. I think he's leading the NFL in pass attempts. It's ridiculous. Well, I mean, Andrew Luck probably does now after he's played this week, but yeah, you know what I mean. Hey, Tags, is Corey Davis a must bench? I don't think he's a must bench because he's seeing such a high target share that I've been talking to people like I remember before last week, people were telling me I was stupid for saying that Corey Davis was still like a high end wide receiver 3 for the remainder of the season, because I had him ranked as my number 25 receiver, and people are like, oh, that's just too bold, man. I'm like, you guys not realize the target share he's getting? Like, he is the target. He is the offense. Like if he doesn't move, the offense doesn't move very well. I know that they need to get their run game going, but it hasn't been working. That's why it's like Corey Davis is very vital. He had a great matchup last week against Philadelphia, as I just mentioned. So I don't think he's a must bench because targets do mean things, but at the same time, don't expect like a massive performance out of him. That's basically where I'm coming from that. Alex Collins or Aaron Jones? Alex Collins, for sure. Aaron Rodgers or Jared Goff? That's a really tough question. So the thing is I know that a lot of people would say Rodgers, like hands down. I would probably play Rodgers myself, but Jared Goff is, I think, a higher floor, because like Rodgers, it's like we've seen situations where he's had other players forced to kind of step into the lineup and it doesn't work because he has no chemistry with those receivers. So if he's missing both Randall Cobb and Geronimo Allison, it's relying on some players that he hasn't worked very much with, like I said, Valdez Scantling, and then you might have Jamon Moore, you might have Equanimous St. Brown playing some snaps, D'Angelo Yancey. I don't know what their depth chart looks like behind Scantling, so it's tough for me to say. But I mean, Jimmy Graham's only been with the team since this offseason, so he doesn't have much chemistry with him. Devontae Adams is going to be matched up with Darius Slay. There's just a lot of ifs about this matchup where it's like Rodgers comes with more risk than Jared Goff. Jared Goff's a safer play for sure. Without Earl Thomas, that pass defense has changed. So if you want a safe play, go with Goff. I'd probably play Rodgers, but it's really close. I wouldn't blame you if you told me that I'm wrong. But that's where I'm at. Jordy Nelson, Michael Crabtree, or Demaryius Thomas. So I'm going to go with Jordy Nelson here. And the thing is like Jordy was someone that I dropped off of a fantasy team after week 3, I think it was, because like he's someone I didn't draft very much, and I didn't have many shares of him at all. And the reason is because I felt like he was done, especially like finding out that Martavis Bryant wasn't on the team at this point, and they had him playing on the perimeter. It wasn't going to work. But now that they brought Martavis back, they have Jordy playing out of the slot. He's run over 50% of his routes from the slot the last 2 weeks, which is just massive. And it's forced me to change everything that I thought about Jordy Nelson, because that slot role is much more valuable. He's going to see nickel cornerbacks. They're going to be less talented corners. Sometimes he'll see linebackers. They can create mismatches, and Jordy can win those matchups. Yes, he can. So he's playing a more valuable role in the offense now. I think that the game in general has sneaky shootout potential. I think people are like overlooking that game a little bit. So I like Jordy. Crabtree has looked terrible. He's looked terrible. He's going to see the most of Denzel Ward, I would think. But he's looked really bad, dropping multiple passes from Joe Flacco. He leads the league in drop rate. It's not even close. He's just looked bad. So I'd like to see him do something before I trust him. And then Demaryius Thomas. I mean, I love Emmanuel Sanders' matchup this week. So Emmanuel Sanders is going to match up in the slot with Buster Screen. He's a must play. Like if you have Emmanuel Sanders, play him. Demarius is a little different, right? Demarius hasn't shown any chemistry with Case Keenum, and Keenum's been terrible. Like, so do I think that Case Keenum can support two fantasy relevant wide receivers? Probably not. But the one reason to like Demarius a little bit more is that Tremaine Johnson is going to be out for this week. So Tremaine Johnson, the big name free agent that they signed this offseason, he's missing this game. So it's going to be Morris Claiborne, seeing Demaryius Thomas the majority of the time. And Claiborne's been really hit or miss throughout his career. Combining that with Case Keenum's struggles, it's just let's see. Royce Freeman, Emmanuel Sanders, or Alex Collins at the flex. So that's tough not to say Collins, man. Just because, like, I mean, I said Emmanuel Sanders. I think you could probably play him over one of your receivers. I know you're asking me about flex, but I would imagine I have Emmanuel Sanders ranked higher than one of your receivers, and I'd like to get Collins in there as well. Corey Davis or Kenny Galladay or Amari Cooper. I would go Galladay this week. So the order I have them is Galladay, Cooper, Davis. So Galladay, if there's something that's actually wrong with Marvin Jones, and like we're kind of being duped in this whole thing because we think that the Lions are just lying about their injury reports or whatever we think they're doing. If that's possible, Kenny Galladay would be the one reaping the benefits. And Galladay's been better than Marvin Jones so far, like in so many different ways. He's receiving higher percentage targets. If Marvin Jones doesn't score a touchdown, he's been kind of a mediocre option, knowing that he's been limited to practice. Maybe it means Galladay's more of the game plan. It's tough to say, but I think Galladay's a fine play this week. Mixon or Breida, I'd play Mixon for sure. Like, so Breida is part of a timeshare. Like, that's 100%. He is part of a timeshare. He plays behind a bad offensive line. I don't even know if Mike McGlinchey's playing. I think he is. But Breida just comes with a little more risk than I would like. Mixon, we know that he's legit. Like, he might see 90% of the running back touches this week, and that's just something you can't find. Breida or Collins in a flex spot, I would play Collins. I think Alex Collins scores this game, and maybe twice. Let's see. Doug Baldwin, Keelan Cole, or D.D. Westbrook. Man, that's tough. It's between Doug Baldwin and Keelan Cole. I'd probably go with Baldwin. I feel like the game script is gonna call for Baldwin to see 8+ targets, and if Baldwin sees 8+ targets, even if it's against Nickel Roby Coleman, like he'll be fine. Like we saw Adam Thielen post solid numbers against that defense. It's not to say that they're a bad defense at all. I'm not saying LA's a bad defense. They're not, but I think that there can be things exploited with it. I think they were just outcoached. Or outplayed last week against Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs. Like there was just too much talent, and Doug Baldwin is that guy. Keelan Cole, I like. However, it's just like there are a lot of options out there in Jacksonville. We've seen Dante Moncrief putting up points that I don't think anybody expected. We've seen D.D. Westbrook be their best receiver the last couple of weeks. And Keelan Cole is like the forgotten man, right? The guy that everybody wanted at the start of the season once Marquise Lee went down. Now nobody talks about. So it's like he's the forgotten man, right? He has the best matchup of their wide receivers this week. All right. So, sorry guys about that. What is fair value for DJ Moore? I mean, is this a dynasty? Because if it's a dynasty, I wouldn't have owned DJ Moore because I'm not a huge Moore guy. Like, I just feel like there was like Calvin Ridley was a much better pick. And like, you can go back to my dynasty. I'm not just saying that after the fact. Like, I loved Calvin Ridley. I'm not a huge DJ Moore fan. So if it's dynasty, I mean, he hasn't done anything to like lower his value. He's still in the same situation. I mean, he hasn't played. That's a problem. But I would say I'd try and get like a late first round pick, but I don't even know if you can get that anymore. Chris Thompson or Matt Breida in a PPR. I would play Chris Thompson. Chris Thompson's matchup, like Adrian Peterson's dinged up. The Saints don't allow much to running backs on the ground. So I think Thompson's going to have to be used. Josh Doxson's probably not going to play. Paul Richardson, very mediocre. He's going to be covered by Marshawn Lattimore, I'm guessing now. And you have Jordan Reed and Chris Thompson basically left over, and Jamison Crowder. It's just like these targets over the middle of the field. So I'm going Chris Thompson there. Need 3 of 4 standard: Philip Lindsay, Royce Freeman, D.D. Westbrook, Buck Allen. All right, so you just need me to sit one of those guys. If I'm sitting one of them, it's Buck Allen. Buck Allen, he hasn't looked really good. And the thing is like, even though Alex Collins fumbled last week, they still went back to him. And I think it's just they're going back to him because they realize he's not very good. Like, I don't think Buck Allen's very good. Alex Collins is at least a bruiser. Allen, I don't like playing because if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's a bust. So I would actually sit him and at least take the upside with D.D. Westbrook. I mean, I don't like the matchup for him, but I would rather have the upside than playing Buck Allen. PPR need 2, Carlos Hyde, Melvin Gordon, Mark Ingram, Bilal Powell. Well, I mean, you're never sitting Melvin Gordon, so that's just like out of the question. And Mark Ingram is the other one I would play. So Carlos Hyde, tough matchup against Baltimore. They've allowed like 3.6 yards per carry, 1 rushing touchdown in the season. And some people will go back to last year, but like they struggled when they were missing Brandon Williams on the defensive line last year. It's like something that people miss when they look at like these big like statistical things from last year. It's like there were reasons that they didn't play as well against the run last year. They're a healthy team right now. They got their cornerbacks back. Like there's so many things to like about that Baltimore defense. And Carlos Hyde, tough matchup. Bilal Powell, no. I would play Mark Ingram alongside Melvin Gordon. AP or Joe Mixon? Mixon. Again, AP's matchup is not good, guys. Like, so New Orleans, I'm going to pull it up so you guys can, so I can let you know. So Carlos Hyde, 16 carries, 43 yards. Tevin Coleman, 15 carries for 33 yards. Saquon Barkley, 10 carries for 44 yards. So like, yeah, don't like think that Adrian Peterson has a good matchup or something like that because he doesn't. Let's see. James Conner or Matt Breida? Conner. Like Conner's a top 5 play for me. He's going to be in my DFS cash game lineup. That just tells you like I trust him, like trust him a lot. Even if he can't get it done on the ground, Atlanta allows so much to the running backs through the air. It's not even funny. And knowing that Ben Roethlisberger's been struggling a little bit on throwing the deep ball, like he's legitimately like I want to say he ranks 28th in the NFL in deep passing, which is just not good. Usually Ben's a lot better than that. Like he's usually one of the better deep ball passers. He's willing to throw it down the field a lot more than others. But yeah, so I approach with caution when it comes to like going overboard on like the deep ball. So I just think I think James Conner is like a very easy check down option, as is Vance McDonald, and you're going to get the rushing scores too. This game, the over under is 58.5, I think now. I'm still expecting it to go over. There's going to be a whole lot of scoring, and you want parts of that game. Full PPR, Jay Ajayi versus Deion Lewis. I would go Deion Lewis here, I think, on a full PPR. If it was standard, I'd probably take my shot on Ajayi scoring against Minnesota. But knowing that Darren Sproles is out, Corey Clement is dinged up, and he's questionable. And like when players don't practice for Doug Peterson, they typically don't play very much. So, Ajayi should have a good role in terms of like work, like his workload, his snap count and everything like that. But the matchup isn't great. So yeah, that one's really tough. But I would probably go Deion Lewis just because the matchup against Buffalo is just so good. Mark Ingram or James Conner? I would go James Conner. Flex spot, Ajayi or Emmanuel Sanders? I would play Sanders. Should I play Adams since he's not questionable anymore? I mean, yeah, the thing is, that's my thing with Adams. It's like, I never felt like he was benchable, like even when he was questionable. I always figured he would play through this calf injury, but I'm just saying his matchup is tougher than most weeks. And knowing, the philosophy that Matt Patricia is saying under the Lions defense about taking away that number one option, the way that they sold out and put 2 or 3 guys on Rob Gronkowski every single play, they kind of followed through with that. So, I mean, Devontae Adams is clearly the number one option on this team. So I think you'd need to dial back expectations, but I still would play him. Alfred Blue or Corey Grant to replace Miller? Alfred Blue for sure. So, I mean, Alfred Blue is like, he's a boring play for sure, but knowing that Sean Lee is out for the Cowboys, that's massive, right? Leighton Vander Esch has been fine in terms of a replacement, but they're not stopping the run. They've really struggled there. And Dallas, they inactivate, it was 2 players last night that were shut down for them that they're not playing this week. So their defense is a little shorthanded. So I would actually play Alfred Blue. Adrian Peterson or Mark Ingram? Ingram. Yeah, for sure. Trade Fournette and for who? I mean, that's a good question. I guess it depends on trade questions are always so difficult because the thing is like, I don't know what your league mates have. I don't know what the rest of your roster looks like. That's why I typically don't. I could answer a trade question like, would I trade Fournette for player X? So like, if you wanted to know, like, would I trade Leonard Fournette for Le'Veon Bell? Yeah, I would. I wouldn't trade Fournette for someone like Carlos Hyde. I wouldn't do that because I think there's a chance that Carlos Hyde actually loses his job. Really think there's a chance, like at some point, if he struggles, I think they will go to Chubb. Let's see, Philip Lindsay or Adrian Peterson. Man, that's tough. I would probably go Adrian Peterson because the Broncos have talked about getting more work for Royce Freeman, and I believe that they should. I think Lindsey is a fine player, but I also think that he's best suited is like the lesser part of a timeshare is all I'm saying. I think he's a better pass catching back. I think they need to get Freeman a little more involved. Peterson, he's clearly their 1-2 down back. He's going to get the goal line carries. So I would go Adrian Peterson. It's close. If it's a PPR, I debate Lindsey. But if it's standard, which you didn't specify that, if it's standard, I'd go Peterson. Duke or Buck Allen, I would go Duke Johnson. Let's see. Flex Yeldon or Ingram. That's really tough. If I'm in a PPR format, I would go Yeldon. If it's a standard league, it's a bit closer. I might still go Yeldon, but I'm tempted to say Ingram. You have to like Yeldon a lot. So I messaged Bobby actually something so as the weeks go on, it's like I had a chance to like gather some information and say, okay, now I can actually spit out useful things to you guys that are like I haven't said. So Kansas City, we're now through 4 games. All right. So on average last year, it took 11.6 PPR points for a running back to finish top 24 on average. The Chiefs have allowed 8 running backs to score at least 11.6 PPR points this year. That's through 4 games. So it's 2 every single game. Like, how do we not like TJ Yeldon in this game? So I like Yeldon a lot. He probably comes with less risk than Mark Ingram. So I'll probably go Yeldon there, but it's close in standard. But in PPR, it's definitely Yeldon. Aaron Jones or Alex Collins? I would play Collins. So the way that you guys should approach Aaron Jones, because I do see a lot of Jones questions as I kind of scroll through here. Aaron Jones is like a guy that we still have not seen him get many touches, guys. Like, I mean, what did he have last week? 9? Like, is 9 touches? Is that what it was? Like, I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm actually going to look because I was going through this and trying to figure it out. 11. So he had 11 carries last week, but so did Jamal Williams. They ran the ball 27 times. So it was like more of a rushing game for them. That's the thing is like going to that game with they won 22-0 against Buffalo. 11 carries. I mean, what are we expecting? Like Detroit, do you expect them to blow out Detroit? Because I don't. Like this is like, I feel like Aaron Jones is like an upside play. Like if you want to throw somebody an upside because Detroit can be run on, if you want to do that, I'm fine with it. But he's no sure thing, guys. Like it's very, very possible. Like if I had to project Aaron Jones this week for how many touches he would get, I would say 8 to 10 carries and 1 to 2 receptions. And so when you think about it that way, you're like, okay, well, that means he needs to break one or score a touchdown. And that's how I feel about him. That's why I have him ranked in the RB3 territory. But he does come with more upside than most because he plays in an awesome offense. He is getting more carries as the weeks go on. He looks better than Jamal Williams, but it just game script does matter. And if they have to pass, they're going to go more towards Jamal Williams. So I'd go Alex Collins. Ridley or Ingram or Mixon? Oh, wow. In a PPR. Well, Willie, that's a good problem to have. Obviously, I think you're probably in a good spot if you have to choose between these guys. But I would go Joe Mixon. Give me the guaranteed touches in a PPR format. Calvin Ridley has tremendous upside, as we know, but he does also have the toughest matchup this week against the Steelers. He's going to match up with Joe Hayden more than anybody else. So it's a little tougher for him. Mixon, again, Miami is shorthanded on defense. They have struggled against running backs. So I'm going to go Mixon here. All right. Stop. All right. Murray, McCoy, or Blue. So I'm guessing that's like Latavius Murray, LaShawn McCoy, or Alfred Blue. I would go with Alfred Blue. That's what I would do right now. That's where I'm leaning because I don't think it seems like Lamar Miller is not going to play. So I'll say Alfred Blue. Tate or Allen, Golden Tate or Keenan Allen. I hope this is a DFS question because if this is for a season-long lineup, seriously, you need to make some trades because there is no way that you want to make the choice between Tate and Allen every week. Me personally, I'd play Keenan Allen. I think Keenan Allen is due for like a blow-up week here at some point, and the matchup isn't terrible against Oakland. Kenny Stills or Marvin Jones? Marvin Jones. I mean, Stills, the matchup isn't terrible against the Bengals, like because their secondary has been like worse than people expected it to be, but it's still Kenny Stills, and he's still not seeing any more than like 5 or 6 targets per game. Marvin Jones, at least the quarterback that's throwing him the ball, is really freaking good at football. And Marvin Jones has shown the ability to go up and win those one-on-one situations. He should see at least 5 or 6 targets. And like I said, I like his situation better than I do Stills. Need to standard score. Oh, I lost it. Sorry. All right. Mike Williams versus Doug Baldwin, full PPR. Full PPR, yeah, this is Doug Baldwin for me. Mike Williams is kind of like Mike Williams. That's a good analogy, actually. Mike Williams is the Aaron Jones of wide receivers. Okay, so he's not someone that you're going to project to get 8+ targets because it's just not going to happen. He doesn't get it. Tyrell Williams is still running ahead of him in 2 wide receiver sets. Keenan Allen is still due for a blow up game. Antonio Gates is getting more involved as the weeks go on. It helps that Travis Benjamin is now like out for an extended period of time. Mike Williams has 2 touchdown upside. He does, but he's not a guaranteed thing. Really not. Doug Baldwin also probably has 2 touchdown upside, but he's more of a guaranteed thing in terms of like the targets he's going to get. So I would play Doug Baldwin. I know the matchup is a little bit tougher, but I would go Baldwin. Half point. All right. So let's see. Mahomes or Stafford? I would play Stafford. Yeah, I talked about Mahomes like quite a bit. So I want to make sure you guys knew about that one. But Stafford is where I would go there. It's just their run game. I mean, it's not that they're struggling to run the ball because Kerryon Johnson's looked really good, but they're just not consistently running the ball. Like they don't put the hands in their running backs' hands too often. And against the Packers, they're not going to want to take their foot off the throttle. So I do think that Stafford is the play. Kiki QT or Crowder? I'd go Crowder. It seems like QT is not going to play. And if he does play, he's going to be limited, it seems like. I go Crowder. Hayden Hurst or Croft. Is there any better options? Like, so I love Hayden Hurst, the player. I liked, the landing spot for him, but now they have like 4 tight ends involved. Like seriously, when I write the primer, I talk about this with the Ravens. It's like their tight ends are being targeted so much, but there's not one person getting them all. Like Mark Andrews might be the most talented pass catcher of the bunch. He's getting some targets. He's getting targeted in the red zone. Hayden Hurst, this is his first NFL game. Like, what are we really expecting from a rookie tight end in his first NFL game playing alongside like 3 or 4 other tight ends? That's the problem for me. I don't know how much they play him in his first game. I think they might ease him into game action. Not in love with him. Croft is not even the number 1 tight end in Cincinnati. It seems like CJ Uzoma is the number 1 tight end because if you look at the snap counts, if you look at the pass routes, Uzoma has been running ahead of Croft all year long. So unless something changed, like it's hard to see that. If you're looking for someone if you're looking for someone to play who's on a waiver wire right now, and they probably are considering the names that you're talking about here, I would rather play Nick Vannett than both those guys. Nick Vannett against the Rams team that struggled with tight ends this year. Vannett is the only tight end there. Will Dissly is out for the year. And that's just creates opportunity because if you combine those 2 into 1 tight end, they've seen a high market share. So I do like Nick Vannett this week. Let's see. Austin Hooper is another tight end that I think you guys can stream this week if you wanted to. Half PPR, Hyde, Freeman, or Breida. I would probably go Breida in that situation. Like it's between Devonta Freeman and Breida, but knowing that Freeman is coming off a multi-week absence, knowing that he's not going to be able to run the ball very well against Pittsburgh because their front 7 has done well against the run, although it seems like Vince Williams is going to be out for this game, even though he's a better pass rusher. So Devonta Freeman, there's some risk there. There's some risk with Breida as well, but the matchup, it doesn't get much better, right? Arizona, I think Arizona is better than people like want to give them credit for. However, we cannot ignore the fact that they've allowed 7 rushing touchdowns in their first 4 games. 7 rushing touchdowns. They've allowed at least 114 yards on the ground in 3 of their 4 games. Yeah, there's reasons to like Breida this week for sure. So I would go Breida. Royce Freeman or Keelan Cole. In a PPR, I would go Keelan Cole. PPR hurts Royce Freeman too much. He's not being used in the pass game at all. Let's see. Start Tyreek Hill this week. Standard. If you have him in a fantasy football league, I don't know if you could ever bench Tyreek Hill. It's like I tell people with DFS. I'm like, there's never a week where Tyreek Hill is not playable. Like that's how I feel about it. And here's the reason why I think Tyreek Hill could turn out to be a better play than most think. So Jacksonville plays a lot of man coverage, right? They trust Jalen Ramsey. They trust AJ Boye in these situations, right? Tyreek Hill moves around the formation. He's going to go into the slot at times. But the main point is that no matter who he's matched up with, there is no cornerback known to man who can sit there and hang with Tyreek Hill for more than like 3 or 4 seconds. Patrick Mahomes is creating time with his legs and therefore can roll out, can create some time. And Jacksonville has to get to him. Basically, they cannot give him time to find Tyreek Hill because Tyreek Hill will get open if he's in man coverage. Now, with Sammy Watkins playing, it should help too because like they can't continually shade a safety over towards Tyreek and bracket him all game. However, if I'm a defensive coordinator, that's what I do because I'm not worried about Sammy Watkins this week playing less than 100%. But yeah, I don't think that you ever bench Tyreek Hill. PPR, Corey Davis, Amari Cooper, or Matt Breida. I would probably go with Breida in the situation. Like, I think Amari's matchup is better than people think, but I would go with Breida because I like the guaranteed touches, and he's got a good matchup. Also, Russell Wilson or Marcus Mariota. I'd play Russell Wilson. It hasn't been pretty, man. It hasn't at all. And I wrote about that. I think in the primer. I think I put it in there. If you guys haven't seen the primer, if I don't talk about one of your players on here, understand that like on the website, it's called the primer. I write a paragraph on every single player from every single game, trying to give my take on that because I know I can't get to all the questions on Twitter. I often can't get to all the questions on here, but I try to answer as many as I can in that article. So hopefully, if you guys, if I don't get to your question here, I'm sorry, but the primer should have, it should give you more confidence, I guess, when you're choosing. Let's see. But I would go, but Russell Wilson, what I said about him in there is that he's really struggled over the first, like the beginning parts of the season, because I remembered a couple, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe, yeah, 2 years ago, where I had a friend that was willing to trade me Russell Wilson for nothing. And it was because he had such a slow start. And I remember that. And I was just like, man, Russell Wilson's not this bad. Like he's going to turn it around. And like, so I thought about that when writing the primer this week. So I went back and I looked and like, has Russell Wilson always had bad starts this season? So I went back and looked, and sure enough, Russell Wilson just struggles to start the year most times. Like the 2 years ago, I think he was a QB 23 through 8 weeks. Last year, he was the QB, I think 13 or something like that through 4 weeks. So like he hasn't been like a fast starter. So he's like a slow starter traditionally. I don't know if he pops out of it this weekend against the Rams, but I mean, Kirk Cousins did okay against them. Kirk Cousins has a very bad offensive line too. His like Doug Baldwin's healthy. That obviously helps. Tyler Lockett's out there healthy. So I don't know. I mean, I'd go Russell Wilson just because I don't think Marcus Mariota passes very much this game. Who should I start, Ridley or Chris Thompson in PPR? Ooh, that's tough. That's really tough. I'd probably go with Ridley, but it's really close, man. That's really close. That question. I'd probably go with Ridley. I just think the ceiling's a little bit higher. Yeah, that's tough. That's a really tough one, Jackson. All right, let's see. Elyard, Stills or Marvin Jones? I got that one already. Marvin Jones or Corey Davis? I would play Marvin Jones. I have Thielen, Adams, and Kupp in the flex full PPR. Who do I put Sanders in for? I would play Sanders probably over Adams. I'd probably play him over Adams, knowing that he's got the calf injury, knowing the matchup is a little bit tougher. I don't know, man. I think I have Sanders ranked over Kupp too. So I mean, I like Sanders a lot this week. I understand if you don't want to play him though, because there is some risk because obviously Case Keenum hasn't been very good. But Buster Screen, the matchup for Emmanuel Sanders literally does not get much better than this. It really doesn't. I need two of these in PPR: Kelsey, Jared Cook, Corey Davis, and Austin Eckler. Kelsey's definitely one of them, and I'd probably go Corey Davis in the other one. Like Eckler is going to be involved in that game, goes to a shootout, and like Melvin Gordon, he's been touching the ball a lot more. It's like it's like a little less than 2-to-1 ratio. So he's been getting touches, and that's the thing. It's like 7 to 14 touches a week. That's valuable. Jared Cook, I don't know, man. I've been burned by him a lot. And the thing is like we know who Jared Cook is at this point in his career. Did the offense make that much of a change? I think it might have just been luck of the draw. We've seen Jared Cook have these games here and there. So it's like I don't want to completely believe in him. And when people like talk about this game and they're like, oh, he's got a good matchup. I'm not saying that he has a bad matchup. He doesn't. Like obviously George Kittle last week, 6 catches for 125 yards and a touchdown. But you guys have to know that 82 yards and a touchdown. So basically, 90% of his fantasy production came on one play, and a lot of it was done after the catch. So, I mean, it's not that Jared Cook's a bad play at all, but I prefer Corey Davis. I just think he's a lot more talented. The matchup isn't great, but at the same time, he's been getting targeted. So I'll go Kelsey and Corey Davis. Allison is out. Any Green Bay wide receiver suggestions? Okay, so that's good to know. I haven't been able to see that for whatever reason. I don't know if my alerts just haven't popped up or whatever, but if Geronimo Allison is out, which it seemed like he was going to be, Marquez Valdez Scantling, for whatever reason, I keep screwing up when I say that name. But he's someone that I would definitely consider as a wide receiver 4 option this week. He's someone that you can plug in if you need a wide receiver. I also think that Ty Montgomery is going to get a bump in production if you want to play him in a flex spot. Let's see. All right. Hyde or Lindsay in a PPR format. I would go with I think I'd play Lindsey this week. Again, I don't like Hyde's matchup against Baltimore, guys. Like I try not to play running backs against Baltimore if I can help it. And knowing that Hyde doesn't really catch many passes in a PPR, I'll probably lean Lindsey there. But it is close, but I'll probably go Lindsey. In a standard, I'd probably say Hyde just because he's got a better shot of scoring. But yeah. Bortles versus Wilson. I'd play Bortles. It's crazy to say that, but the matchup just kind of calls for it. And the weather, from what I'm hearing, I'm going to check it again, obviously, before I finalize my rankings and all that. The weather, they say that it's rain right now, but it's going to die down as the game goes on. There's really no wind. That it shouldn't be that bad. It shouldn't affect the game that much. So knowing that Bortles is playing against Kansas City, who has now allowed. Well, they've allowed 3 20-point passers. You had Case Keenum last week who didn't do anything, and that's always possible with Bortles. But you should have the rushing ability there too with no Leonard Fournette, knowing that like if they get down the goal line, they might go to Safarian Jenkins or something like that, or Dante Moncrief. I just think Bortles is probably the safer play right now with how Wilson's played. Let's see, 12-man standard league, pick 2, Connor, Mixon, Lynch, Ingram. So I would go Connor and Mixon. Marshawn Lynch's matchup. I mean, the Chargers have done pretty well against the run this year. Their secondary is what's been eaten alive, essentially. So Lynch, he's been a little dinged up. I think that I don't know if they start dialing back his touches at all, just because somebody his age is eventually going to catch up. Mark Ingram, like him, but the thing is like he comes with some risk, right? It's his first game back. We don't know how much they're going to use him. I have him as like a low end RB1, but I have James Conner and Mixon as my highest 2. All right, let's see. Crabtree, Stills, or Fitzgerald. And a PPR flex. In a PPR, I might go Fitzgerald. Like the thing is like I don't know how to feel about this because Larry Fitzgerald's playing at less than 100%. I know he is. Josh Rosen looked better than Sam Bradford, but he also seems to favor Christian Kirk in the passing game. So it's like, how much do we trust Fitzgerald here? The matchup with Kawan Williams in the slot, it's okay. I'm going to go Stills. I'll go Stills here just because I'll just take my chances on the big play. I know Fitzgerald's not going to break a big play. He has to do it consistently. So I'll just go with Stills here. Baldwin, Fuller, Williams. Okay, there's what I'm guessing it's Doug Baldwin, Will Fuller, Mike Williams. I would play Doug Baldwin of those options. Cooper Kupp, Golden Tate, Mark Ingram, Devonta Freeman. Probably Tate. Lockett, Kohler, or Nunwa. I would go with Keelan Cole of those guys. All right, and then I could take one more real quick. PPR running back, Matt Breida or Philip Lindsay. I would play Breida because, again, you're talking about 2 timeshare running backs. You're looking for the better matchup. The Jets are still a decent run defense. They're not great, but they're decent. Whereas Arizona has really struggled, and Matt Breida has become the leader of that timeshare. So that's why I'd go with Breida there. But man, you guys are awesome. Like, thank you guys seriously for showing up every single weekend, talking this through with me. Obviously, we have a lot to cover in a short amount of time. There's a lot of questions, and I'm sorry if I don't get to yours. And like, if you've been here every week and I don't get to your question, I'm so sorry. Like, because I'm not picking favorites. I'm literally just picking out questions here and there, just trying to randomize it the best that I can. So hopefully you guys learned something here in the stream. That's the idea every single week, is to teach you something that you didn't know coming in. But if you guys still have questions, again, check out the primer. And if you guys want to have a chance to win a free Michael Thomas signed Saints jersey, we have one that we're giving away. All you have to do is go to fantasypros.com/jersey-giveaway. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for the show, guys. There it is on the screen. So make sure to check the link out. Go and do that now. It literally takes 2 minutes. I want one of you guys to win this jersey. I want you to come back and tell me, hey, I was watching the live stream. I filled out that thing for the jersey and I won. That's what I want to hear from one of you guys. So thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. And until next time, lights out.